Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And for those of you joining me for the first time, my name is Melissa Reed and I am a mixed media artist from Pennsylvania. So in last week's video, I mentioned that I'm going to be doing a little mini series on image transfer. And I have come across several different methods of transferring images throughout my years of work with this type of media. And I wanted to share some of my top favorites with you and also do a little bit of troubleshooting that I have kind of learned to work through with my own image transfer, and hopefully it will save you a little bit of time and aggravation as well. So for the first one here, I am going to do a laser print transfer. I got these copies made at the at my local Office Max store. What you need is a high contrast color copy. Color works best. You're not going to be seeing the color, but for whatever reason, the toner in the color does work best to resist the ink, which is what's happening during this process. So I got all of my images that I'm going to be using for this. Well, most of them, the ones that I'm going to be using today, are from unsplash.com, which is a royalty-free website where you can go and download any of their images for use in your work with no fear of legal repercussions. That's where I got these images that you see here. I'm also going to be doing some magazine image transfer and some laser printer transfer. And so those will come from various places as well. And I will talk about those more when we get to that point. But first, we're going to start with the laser print transfer. So I have my 8x10 gel plate here that I have cleaned off. It's nice and clean, conditioned it with baby oil, got everything ready to go. So I am going to first be working just very simply with some Liquitex Basics Mars Black here. So one of the first mistakes that I have made when I started doing these prints was using too much paint on the plate. You do not want too much paint. And this is probably too much, but we're going to just spread it out here and we'll get rid of what we don't need. What you're looking for here is just a very thin layer of paint on your plate. And how you can tell it's about right, and I don't know that you'll be able to see this on camera, but you'll be able to start to see through it a little bit. And if you want to help yourself a little bit, you could put a page underneath there with some writing on it or something, just so that you can kind of tell, when you've got the right amount of paint on there. I don't want to take all day doing this. I want to do the print. However, it is important to make sure that we're taking off as much as possible. You can start to see it's coming off there. Okay, so this looks pretty good. You also don't want it to be dry, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to take my copy and lay it down, and this is where the second problem typically comes in, leaving the print on the plate for too long. You can see that I only had that print down there for just a few, not even seconds, 10 seconds maybe. And this is what I got. If you leave it down there any longer than that and you press it too much, all you're going to do is lift all of the paint from the plate. It's going to all stick to the page that you just lifted up, and you're not going to get a print. All you want to do is leave that on there for enough time for the toner to resist your ink, and that's it. So now you can see here, I've got a little bit of, I like to call this background noise here, and it's just extra paint that I don't necessarily want on the image. There are a lot of different ways that you can get rid of that. You can use painter's tape. I honestly just use a damp shop towel and clean that off. So I'm going to get that cleaned off for you and I will be right back. Okay, now that I've got this cleaned off to the degree that I want, I'm going to go in just with a lighter color to pick up. I'm not doing anything fancy with these. This is all just basically how to get a successful image transfer. And I'm going in with, I'm just going to use another brayer here that I have. That was just a little bit of Artist Loft Naples Yellow. I'm going to spread out. Again, you don't need these layers to be super thick. Not for this particular technique. There are some where I do like it to be a little bit thicker, but not for this. I'm just going to get a clean sheet of copy paper and press that down on there. You can dry this however you choose. I typically am impatient, so I use the help of a warm hair dryer, not hot. I don't think it has to be on the cool setting either. I have used the warm setting always on this plate for years and I've never had any issues, but you know, your mileage may vary. Just want to make sure that this is good and dry, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've got this good and dried. How do you know when it is dry and ready to be picked up? I can do it by feel. When you first lay this down and you're applying pressure, you can feel that the paper is cool to the touch because it's wet. Once that's no longer the case and it is just room temperature, you know that it is ready to pull. And by the magic of jelly printing, here is your city image. Now you can do all sorts of cool things and all different kinds of ways to embellish this. When you get the print laying down on the plate, the black, and you lift it up, before you lay down your pickup color, you can go in and hand paint and hand color any of these. You can use your acrylic paints, you can use your Posca pens. You know, anything that you would normally use on the plate will work to color these. But again, for today's purposes, I just want to go over the actual basics of getting a good transfer. I'm going to do one more for you here. And I am going to just stick with the Mars Black because that gives a really nice contrast and we'll be able to see it really well. You can of course use whatever color you want. That's just what I like for these personally. Again, being careful to apply a very thin layer. Now, how quickly this dries is going to depend on a lot of factors. Mostly the amount of humidity in the air in your house. So take that into account. Now I'm laying this down and you can kind of cheat and lift it up and see if you've got a good image on there. I do. I'm happy with that one. I'm going to just clean this up right here. But best thing to remember with image transfer on the gel plate or any kind of work on the gel plate, work quickly. I think that's a problem that some people are having as well. You're just spending too much time while the paint is on the plate. This is a thin layer of acrylic paint. It is going to dry super duper fast. So you just want to make sure that you're not, you know, fooling around a little bit too much and you're not going to get the paint to actually take. Here we are. Everything's dry and ready to go. And I'm going to pick another color to pick this up with. Again, I'm going to stick with something light. This is light pink. I don't know that I'll ever do anything with these. Probably not. They may end up in a collage, but I really just wanted to do a video on the different ways to do image transfer because I know when I first started out, it's what first drew me to gel printing was the image transfer, specifically the magazine image, which we're going to do next. But I thought it was just so cool, and The very first one that I did worked beautifully, and then I couldn't get one to work forever, and I could not understand what I was doing wrong. So after watching tons of videos and just lots of trial and error, I think I've figured out that my two main problems were too much paint and too much time on the plate. If you can get those under control, it still may not work every single time, but you're going to have much better results in getting the prints that you want to get. I'm going to go ahead and dry this with my hair dryer, and I will be right back with you. Okay, now that this is no longer cool to the touch, I'm going to lift it up and we will have our print. Again, we could have colored this or done anything we want. We can go in and paint it after the fact too. But here are our two laser image prints. Okay, for the next one, we are going to do our magazine image transfer, and I took a page out of a National Geographic magazine. I was specifically looking for something with an image and also some text, because you can get some really nice text prints. I like to use text in my work, and for me, it's not about what it actually says. It's just the look of the text. So I do have some asemic writing stamps that I use a lot, but you can also just grab a magazine page and print it right from there. And you may have seen in some of my previous videos from last year, I did a ransom note style lettering where I would cut certain letters out of a magazine and print those and use them in my pieces, and I thought that was really cool. But we're going to just use this whole image with the text fluff on here. Again, I laid down just enough paint to make a very light layer. Because the page is small, I'm going to try to pick up what's there. Again, not leaving it on there very long. Now, I have these dark spots on there. This is actually just little spots in my plate that sometimes I have an issue with. Not always. But if there's something there that you don't want, you can, of course, clean it up. I'm going to just clean up the big chunks and not worry about the rest of it, because for our purposes today, again, just demonstrating. So I'm going to give this a second to dry, which again, it dries really, really quickly because it's just a thin layer. That's kind of another reason why I wanted to do this in real time today, because I do speed up and edit a lot of my videos, but I just want to show you how little time it actually takes, A, for the paint to dry, B, for the transfer of the image itself, and C, just to see the whole process. So let's choose another light colored paint. I have some titanium, unbleached titanium. We'll use that. Oops. Sorry about the squeaking. Just getting enough paint on there to be able to lift my print. It's easier on the second coat because once you start to see the image come through the paint, that's when you know you've removed enough. And I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to hit it with my hairdryer and I'll be right back. Okay, now that we are no longer cool to the touch, I'm going to peel this off. And I'm just using copy paper to pick this up today. Again, these are all just demos. And we've got our print. And you can see how the text transferred really nicely too. Because this one is so similar to the laser print, I'm just going to do one. But this is what actually made me fall in love with the Gelli Plate in the beginning. I saw videos of people doing this online and thought, wow, this is great. What is this sorcery? And I got myself a plate. And like I mentioned before, the very first magazine transfer I did worked beautifully. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I tried it again and I could not duplicate the results. And then I could get it to work about half the time, but I just couldn't figure out why. But the amount of paint and the amount of time have definitely improved my results greatly. So I hope that works for you as well. Okay, for this next transfer method, I'm going to do inkjet transfer. This is something I just printed up off of my computer, also from Unsplash. This is just an inkjet printer, regular old garden variety. It's an HP. I don't remember the exact name on it. I can put that up in the corner for you, though I will look it up. I just printed an image of a skull. I'm going to, obviously the whole thing's not going to fit, but we'll do the best we can here. I'm going to lay this down on my plate. And then I'm going to spray it. You do not want it to be soaking wet. In fact, I'm going to just make sure that it is damp enough to wet the ink that is on the other side. And you can kind of take a peek. It's starting to lay down there. You can put water down, but you definitely don't want to let it sit in a puddle of water. I made that mistake, and actually you can kind of see what's happening there. It's running just a little bit. It will just make a big blurry mess. But if you just do it this way, it should work perfectly. You just want to make sure the paper is wet. You can see there it's not like completely wet through. So I'm going to just get that again. And I'm just using a shop towel to take up the excess. Careful, it started to rip a little bit there. That will happen because it's just wet paper. And you could feasibly just lift this off right now. I'll show you because the image is down there. I'm going to leave it on for just a few minutes. I'm going to say like 2 minutes and I'll be back. Okay, I let this sit for just a couple of minutes and I'm going to go ahead and carefully remove the wet paper, and I am left with the image of the skull on the plate. And because I did have that on there with wet paper, I'm going to just go ahead and it'll just take a second to dry. Just go ahead and make sure that's dry. You can hit it with a dryer if you want. I just see like 1 or 2 little spots there. And I'm going to keep this, and I don't know why. It's because I'm a paper hoarder, I guess. But I feel like I could probably do something with this, and it's kind of cool looking. And I don't know, at some point I want to put this on a t-shirt. But that's a video for another day. So I'm going to want to pick this up on something with something that is, since it's a very light transfer, with something, a very, very light color. So I'm going to use this titanium white. I need to grab a piece of paper. Sorry. Okay, I just grabbed some more printer paper out of my tray. Incidentally, I just spent the last hour trying to figure out why my printer will no longer recognize my router, and it magically works now. I don't know why. I just love technology, though. It's never a dull moment. Okay, so I'm going to just spread some of my Liquitex titanium white on my plate. That's dry. That's way too much paint, as usual, but that's all right. We can just roll some of that off of there. And this is how easy it is to do an inkjet print. Now, because you are transferring the ink, the printer ink itself, onto the plate, obviously it's going to be a black image. Now, that's fine with me. Will it work with a color printer? I don't know. I never buy colored printer ink because for my purposes, it's kind of a waste of money. So I always just print everything in black. But if you have tried that, let me know if it works. I honestly do not know. And as I'm sure somebody's going to jump in the comment section and tell me this only works with certain kinds of ink, and yes, that's true. And do I know what kind? I believe it's pigment-based inks, but don't quote me to that. All I know is it works with mine, and that's why I'm showing you today. I'm going to lay my pickup sheet down. Sorry if you hear a lot of noise in the background. We are suddenly getting a really bad storm here, kind of out of nowhere. And I've got sleet banging against my windows. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this dried with the hairdryer. I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, I have gotten this completely dry. We're going to peel her off and see what we've got. And it is just like magic. I just love the gel plate. All right, and here is our image transfer. Now, obviously, again, I could have gone in and painted this up before we pulled it, could have altered it in a lot of different ways. Just wanted to show you the basics of it today. I did do a whole entire video on this process a few months back. I can pin that at the end if you're interested in seeing it. But here is the original, and then here is the print. Such a great way to make prints, because I know not everybody has access to a laser printer. I know that I don't at my home. I can certainly send prints out to be made, but if I want to do something just at home, I do have this option, so it really does open up a lot of different possibilities. All right, so for this next demonstration here, I have one of my laser printed pieces, and I actually just cut it down. It was this image. Whoops, I don't know. I do not remember how it went. Yeah, like that. But we don't need the whole thing, because I just want to demonstrate how this works, and then I'm going to use this other half for something else. So this is actually a technique that I used years and years and years ago. I made a gift for, I believe it was my uncle, actually, using a photograph. And I had really good results. So I've never tried it on anything but a wood surface, so that's what I'm going to use it on today. We can give it a try on some mixed media paper or canvas or something like that at some point too. But what we're going to do is get some of our matte medium here and one of my old brushes. We're going to cover the back of this. I'm sorry, I said that completely wrong. We're going to cover the front of this, actually, where the image is. And we're going to lay it down on the board and let it dry. So let's start with that part first. You want to make sure you use a good amount, but you don't want a bunch of it coming out on the other side. I'm actually going to just put this on a sheet of scratch paper to do this on. And I'll speed this part up for you. Okay. I'm not sure I got that whole thing entirely covered. And I did get some on the back, which you don't want to do. We're going to lay this down. We'll do the best we can. And you want to burnish it down with something. I'm just going to use this paintbrush handle. You can use, if you have a Baron around, or a bone folder would work. Just anything, a back of a wooden spoon, just anything that, because what you're trying to do, you're not trying to do that. You do not want to get it on the top. So what the result is going to be here, when this dries, and it has to dry completely, you can assist it with a hairdryer if you want, but when it dries completely, what we're going to do is completely wet down the back of it, and then rub all of the paper off, and it will transfer the image onto the surface, theoretically. Like I said, I've done this before and it has worked, but it's been a really, really long time. That looks pretty good. We'll see what happens. I think what I'm going to do, since I'm doing this one on the wood board and since I still have this other piece here, I'm going to try it on a piece of my mixed media paper or watercolor paper or something a little thicker. So let me grab one of those and I'll be right back. Okay, I ended up going with a piece of watercolor paper, and let's just see what happens. Okay, I didn't take it all the way to the edge this time. So let's glue that guy down, and I'm just gonna actually use whatever tool I have handy here. And I can see a little bit of it coming out the sides there. I'm gonna just ignore that. Not get anywhere near it. All right. The brush worked better. I have a bone folder somewhere, but of course it's nowhere near me and I have absolutely no idea where it might possibly be. So I'm just going to try to burnish this down as much as possible without getting any on the back here. And normally I would probably take a hairdryer to it, but I'm actually going to be leaving to go out to dinner here shortly, so I will probably just let these guys go overnight and we'll come back in the morning and see what we're left with. All right, so it is now the next day. It is about 12:30 in the afternoon. I've let this dry all night. It is completely bone dry. Theoretically, the image will be transferred onto the board once I wet this down and remove all of the paper fibers. So that's what I am going to do. I am going to just soak this pretty good. I can see the image, so that's a good first step. Just gonna make sure. So the one thing that might happen, because if you remember yesterday when I was gluing this down, I did have a little bit come out and get on the paper. Those parts are probably not going to release the image. Yep, this is working perfectly. So what happened was the matte medium that we put down captured the image and adhered it to the board. And what we're doing now is just removing these paper fibers. As you can see, there's nothing like crazy scientific about it or anything. It's just what happens when you start removing the paper. And I'm just using my finger here, as you can see. I did have a shop towel that I thought I might use too. Sorry, the camera is going to shake because my camera mount is attached to my table. Now I did lose a little bit of the image there, so I gotta be a little bit careful. But that doesn't bother me because it gives it a weathered look that I actually like. Might be best just to use your finger for this because I'm not having that issue when I'm doing that. But again, yeah, I'm sorry for the shaky camera. It's just what I have to work with as far as a recording setup at the moment. I'm going to speed this up for you and we'll get to the end. Okay, so I've gotten most of the paper fibers off, but in running my hand over it, I can still feel a little bit. I'm going to spray it down one more time, rub over it again, and I should be able to get the majority of the paper off of there. Once this dries, it may have a slight haze to it, but you can eliminate that by putting another coat of either the matte gel or the gloss gel medium on it. You can use this. This is actually a really cool thing. Like I said, I had used it to make a gift. I had a picture of my uncle with his dog, and I did it on like a slice of log. You know how you can buy those at craft stores, or if you have, the means by which to just slice up some logs yourself. And it made a really cool gift. You can do all sorts of things, put your own photographs on here because I used a laser print on this one, but this works with inkjet print too. So, yeah, this is really cool. I'm glad this worked out as well as it did, and lots of possibilities to make things with that. So I have that other half of this that I put on the watercolor paper. I have not done it on paper before. I'm going to just go ahead and do the same technique, spritz this all down, get it good and soaked, and then see if it peels off as well on the paper. I'm going to speed this up for you. So I just had an idea because I'm rubbing all of the skin on my thumb off. I'm gonna actually use one of these it's like a what are these called? One of these foam sponges. I know Mr. Clean makes a version of it. I can't think. I think I got this one at Aldi. But yeah, this is gonna save your hands a lot of trouble if you use one of these. So maybe do that instead of ripping off half of your skin. Yeah, that works really, really much better. And you don't have to try to get it all off in one go. I think if you do that, you run the risk of lifting up some of the image like I did here. Just get the first main layer of the paper off, and then you can just go back in and wet it again, and you'll be able to pull off the rest of it as well. Now, you can see here where some of the image rubbed off. Don't rub very hard either. This is just, kind of, there's an art to this. You don't want to just go in there and He-Man your way through it. But yeah, this worked out just fine. I wasn't sure how the paper was going to work. Obviously, I would only do this on a hardier paper, like something like mixed media, or this is watercolor paper, like I said, and this is working just fine. I wouldn't try to do this on copy paper or something very thin because I think you're probably just going to end up ripping the paper underneath. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it would work. It just doesn't seem like it would. But I'm just kind of going through now and wiping off any of the extra little pieces. And this is what we have. And this is on the paper. And oh, okay, here, I'm going to show you this now because I let this one dry and it does have a little bit of paper still on it, but let it dry because then you can really see it. And then you can go back in again. I'm going to spray that all down. And I'm going to take the sponge over it. Sorry about the squeaking. And just really try to get the rest of that paper off of there. And this is what we're left with. And I think that's really, really cool. Okay, the last technique that I'm going to show you today, this is actually an experiment. I have not done this one myself, but it should work. This is along the same lines as the one that we just did. So I have this image of birds here. I'm going to trim this down. Actually, I think I'm going to take it in pretty close to the image of the birds, not getting exact here. I also don't want to go up right to the edge and cut out the perfect outline, because I'm thinking that when you go to rub the paper off of this one, just in case you do lose some of the image around the edge, you're not going to, lose anything important there. But this again is another laser print that I had done at my Office Max. Let's throw away all this stuff. So it's going to go like around the center there. But instead of using the matte medium on it, you should also be able to get the results using either gesso or even acrylic paint. And I'm going to try it with acrylic paint, I think, because why not? So let me just get out some paints. And I'm going to just go in and do just kind of blocks of different colors. I don't really care what the colors are. It's not too important to me. So I'm just going to pick out some colors that might look nice together and just start laying them down. So let's start. And I'm laying down a pretty thick layer of these. Not worrying too much about blending. So much in the same way that we laid down a pretty thick layer of the matte medium on the last piece, we're doing that here with these acrylic paints, because the paint is going to serve as the media for the transfer of the image. So these can blend a little bit. I actually kind of like that. Let's pull that off of there. And before I lay the image down, I'm going to just go in and make sure there is a lot of paint everywhere. There are some areas here that I feel like could have some more on. And I think a little blue might look nice. We've got about 75 paintbrushes employed here, but that is all right. And throw a little green down here just for fun. That's a lot of green. That's all right. Do I have another paintbrush? Somewhere. Well, here, let's use this sponge brush. Okay. Do I have a lot of paint down there? Looks like everything is still wet. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my image and lay it down. I'm just going to burnish this using my finger because since it's on a canvas, there's that give in the background. So I'm just going to trying not to get any paint on the back of this, but I want to make sure all of the surfaces are touching. And I have a little bit of buildup of paint there, which isn't going to matter, except when you take the image off, you're still going to be able to see that. So I'm just taking a piece of this paper and I'm going to just try to pull it away. Just to... yeah, that works. And it's a good use for scrap paper. You can also just use one of your cards. I might play around a little bit with spreading some more paint here and there because I've got it. And yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna let this guy dry overnight like I did with the others. Then I'll come back tomorrow morning and we will remove the image and see what we've got. Okay, we are back. It is actually 2 days later because, well, life happens sometimes. This is now going to get the same treatment that the last two did. So I'm going to go ahead and completely saturate this paper that I have down there. So if you'll remember, this is the laser printed image of the two ravens. I want to make sure I get all of this paper good and wet. And then I'm going to just remove the paper backing, which should leave the image of the birds on there. Again, I haven't tried it with paint. I've only done it before with the matte medium, but I can't imagine that it would work any differently, but we are about to find out. I'm going to just get it started with my finger here. And it appears to be working. Now I'm just going to go in and use my my magic eraser because I don't want to continue ripping my fingers apart as I was doing the other day. So, okay, now that we know that it works with the matte medium, be cautious there because I'm ripping up some of the bird's feathers, but I actually like the way that looks. But if you want your image to be exactly as it was, you know, don't do that. Just be careful. But as I was saying, now that we know that this works with the matte medium as well as paint, then it would also stand to reason that it would work with gesso as well. So basically, if you have some sort of acrylic media, you should be able to use this method to do a transfer. So I'm going to just quickly go through the rest of this and I'm going to speed it up for you. And here we are. Now I went a little crazy over here and started rubbing a little too hard and took some of the image off. Again, I don't mind that look because I'm never looking for something super perfect. But again, if that is something that you want with your image, just be a lot more careful than I was. And you're going to want to make sure you go over this several times. Now, I'm going to call it quits with this one because we've already seen it with the other two. I guarantee when this dries, we're going to get haze on it because there's probably still a layer. In fact, there is. I can feel it here. See that coming up a little bit of paper that's on here. So you want to just do several rounds of the removing of the paper until you get it to look the way that you want it in the end. All right, so this was our experiment with image transfer on paint. This is the image transfer on the board, and these are laser prints. Here is the laser print on the watercolor paper. Here is the inkjet print, just on regular copy paper. One thing I did want to say about this, the reason why this is so light, it's twofold. One, my printer is almost out of ink. I actually just got another one in the mail yesterday. So if you have fresh ink in your printer, it's not going to print this light. Also, you can leave it on a little bit longer than I did. I just left it on for a couple of minutes just to show you that if you want to do a quick transfer, there's really nothing quicker than this. So just two things that I wanted to mention. And then these are both image transfers from our laser prints that I did. And then our magazine image transfer. And we did this one to show you that you could get the text off of there. So this is a really fun method. These are all really fun methods, I should say, and they are all going to be in my regular rotation. Now that I know that this paint one works, there are a lot of possibilities with this. I mean, imagine if you had your own photographs that you wanted to um, get copied on a laser printer and work like this. There's just so many different possibilities for things that you could make and really personalize this way. But again, thank you all so much for being with me for this video. I know it was a little bit longer than usual. I don't like to make them this long, but I didn't really want to split it up into a part one and part two. So if you've stayed with me to the end, thank you so much. If you liked what you saw today, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe to my channel. I put out a new video every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you next week for some more image transfer methods. Have a great one.